In 1939, teacher Vera is looking for a summer job. Isaac, a recruiter at an agency, offers her a position as an assistant for the Owens, mentioning that she was specifically chosen by them. Vera is hesitant, feeling she isn't suited for the role, until she learns the Owens even sent money in advance. Meanwhile, Isaac's secretary is busy writing invitation letters for guests attending the Owens' upcoming party. In another part of the city, a broadcaster is hired to record a few lines that he's told will be used for a play. A few days later, Vera boards a train to her new job. As she travels, she imagines a dangerous rope hanging from the window and grows even more uneasy when she notices Philip staring at her. She moves to another seat, passing businessman William along the way, and ends up sharing a cabin with Lawrence, a retired judge. Elsewhere, Dr. Edward is driving carefully on the road when Anthony speeds past him recklessly, almost causing an accident. Hours later, all these people gather at a dock with General John to take a boat to Soldier Island for the party. Upon arrival, they're surprised to find that the Owens are not there. Butler Thomas and his wife, Ethel, explain that the hosts will arrive later and introduce the final two guests, Anthony and Emily, who had already arrived earlier on their own. The guests settle into their rooms. William, who already has a list of everyone's names, takes notes on the others. Philip hides a gun on his nightstand. Each guest also notices a framed poem in their rooms titled 10 Soldiers, which describes 10 men who die one by one in various ways. While exploring the house, Vera wanders into the below-stairs area but is stopped by Ethel, who says it's for staff only. Vera explains she was hired as an assistant, but Ethel tells her the Owens left instructions to treat her as a guest. That evening, a gong announces dinner. In the dining room, the guests notice 10 soldier figurines at the center of the table, matching the poem. The meal is lively with conversation, yet the Owens still don't appear. Thomas explains there's no telephone to contact them. When the topic of cars comes up, Edward realizes Anthony is the man who ran him off the road, but Anthony denies it, causing an argument that quickly dies down with a fake apology. Suddenly, a strange voice plays over a hidden speaker, naming each guest and accusing them of murder, giving the names of their supposed victims. Shocked and offended, the guests demand answers. Thomas takes them to the room where Vera had been earlier and reveals it was a recording. The voice also accuses the staff of murder, prompting Ethel to have a panic attack. Edward helps her to bed, while Anthony confronts William, suspecting he knows the Owens. William admits he is actually a detective, not a businessman. After Edward leaves, Ethel panics about being exposed, but Thomas urges her to stay quiet. The group reconvenes, and Thomas explains the Owens told him to play the record after dinner, but he had no idea what it contained. Despite his denial, a flashback reveals Thomas once killed his previous employer with a pillow while Ethel watched. The guests begin sharing their sides of the accusations. Anthony and Emily deny everything. Edward explains his named victim was a surgical patient who died from routine complications. John says his supposed victim was a soldier who died in the war. Lawrence insists he sentenced a criminal to death based on secret evidence. William claims his man died from choking in jail. Vera says a child she cared for drowned in the sea while she tried to save him. Philip, however, openly admits killing 21 men in Africa, arguing it was part of his job as a soldier. Anthony then remembers his case, 2 children he supposedly hit by accident while driving at night. But his memory shows it was daytime, and he was driving recklessly. After telling his story, Anthony takes a sip of his drink, begins choking, and dies. Edward confirms the death. The men find Anthony's drugs in his room, but William insists nothing be hidden since this is now a police matter. They all decide to sleep and leave in the morning. That night, Ethel dreams of her crime before hearing a knock on her door. Edward also has nightmares about his failed surgery. In the morning, Thomas wakes Edward to check on Ethel, but she's already been dead for hours. Meanwhile, Philip carries his gun to breakfast and finds William inspecting Anthony's body, discovering a smell of cyanide in his mouth. Vera brings Edward to the dining room, pointing out that only 8 figurines remain. Edward dismisses her, and after he leaves, Vera has a vision of her former employer Olivia and the boy Cyril, the child who drowned. She recalls being scolded for letting him swim, meeting his uncle Hugo, and falling in love. At breakfast, Vera again asks about the missing figurines, but no one admits touching them. She points out that Anthony's and Ethel's deaths match the first 2 lines of a poem. She questions why Edward brought medical supplies if he came for a party, prompting him to admit he was meant to treat Mrs. Owen. Vera suggests checking his bag, and Edward agrees only if Lawrence's is checked as well. Both cases reveal nothing dangerous. In frustration, Edward dumps Vera's suitcase in retaliation. Later, Philip privately tells Vera he killed for diamonds and asks her for the truth, but she maintains her innocence. Meanwhile, John remembers discovering letters from his wife to his friend Henry during the war, evidence of an affair, before shooting Henry in cold blood. Philip questions Thomas, learning that he and Ethel had been on the island for a week without seeing anyone except the supply boat sailor. Philip believes the Owens are hiding somewhere, and William agrees to search with him. During their walk, William reveals his prisoner's accidental death was actually from a beating. John tells Vera he regrets not letting his wife be happy before her death from influenza, and he doubts they can leave the island. Later, Emily shares her story with Vera about a young maid she had trained who ended her life after Emily refused to help her out of trouble. Emily notices a strange flock of birds above John, who is soon found dead. William confirms it's murder. Vera checks the figurines again. Now only 7 remain. Overcome with guilt about Cyril's death, she heads to the beach to end her life, but Lawrence stops her. The guests gather, questioning Philip about his gun. He explains he wasn't invited. He was hired by Isaac under Owen's orders to come as a mercenary. Lawrence says he came expecting to see a friend. Emily says Mrs. Owen was interested in her education work. William says he was told someone would come under false pretenses and a cop would be needed, so Owen provided a guest list. Edward came to treat Mrs. Owen. All had been invited by letter, but none had met the Owens. At that moment, Lawrence points out the letters were signed you and Owen, a play on words for unknown, meaning the killer is one of them. Chaos it off. Meanwhile, Thomas discovers that some liver and kidneys are missing from the fridge. The boat never arrives, so when night falls, everyone locks their doors and goes to sleep. Emily prays for protection but becomes terrified when she has a vision of her maid appearing beside her. The next morning, Edward desperately rings the gong to wake everyone. He's found Thomas dead. The killer used an axe, once again matching the poem, proving Vera right. While Philip and William take the body to Thomas's room, Vera makes coffee, but Emily refuses to drink it, unable to trust it. Edward approaches Lawrence privately. After apologizing for revealing his illness to the others, he proposes an alliance, which Lawrence accepts. Later, while walking through the house, Vera sees something that shocks her and checks the figurines. Another one is missing. She calls everyone to show them Emily is also dead. The killer used a knitting needle to imitate the bee's sting from the poem. After Emily's body is moved to her bed, Philip returns to his room to find his gun missing. He calls a meeting, pointing out that he had locked his door, meaning someone must have a master key. Accusations fly until William offers his alibi. He'd been constipated in the bathroom. The group searches every room for the gun and even strips down to towels or robes to prove nothing is hidden in their clothes. Vera changes into the swimsuit she wore the day Cyril died, remembering how Cyril had wanted her to marry Hugo and be his aunt. Looking in the mirror, she notices a strange hook on the ceiling. Later, Vera sees Philip in just a towel and flirts silently by loosening her robe. They agree to call each other by their first names, unaware Edward is watching. All the bedrooms are clear, so the group searches the rest of the house, but finds nothing. For dinner, they eat straight from cans to avoid poison. The camera reveals the gun and key hidden inside a bare rug. As they drink, Vera recalls Cyril and a conversation with his mother, Olivia, who explained she hadn't known she was pregnant when her husband died. Hugo inherited everything, but when Cyril was born, Hugo's fortune was ruined. Vera decides to make tea, and everyone goes with her for safety. The men ask Lawrence about the death penalties he has handed down. He admits he attended every execution because it was his responsibility. The recording accused him of killing Seaton, believed by the public to be innocent, but Lawrence had been given Seaton's diaries, filled with disturbing confessions. Seaton was different. He refused the hoods so he could look Lawrence in the eye while he died, a gaze that still haunts him. Hearing the word haunt makes Vera see Cyril nearby and remember her romantic moments with Hugo on the beach. Later, Lawrence reads in the living room while Vera returns to her bedroom. As she washes her face, Cyril appears behind her. Then a hand suddenly grabs at the sink, trying to kill her. Memories of Cyril's death flood her mind as Philip and Edward rush in to find her on the floor. She claims it was a panic attack and refuses the brandy William offers, suspicious of it. Philip goes to find a sealed bottle instead. As they drink, the group discusses the strange hook in Vera's room, but they notice Lawrence never came when she screamed. They rush downstairs and find him shot in his chair, exactly as the poem describes. The body is placed in his bedroom, and while accusations flare again, Vera notices another figurine missing. Tired of waiting to die, they decide to throw a party, drinking heavily, taking Anthony's illegal uppers, and replaying the recording of accusations. Philip and Vera grow closer while dancing, while Edward tells William he suspects the young couple of working together. Philip promises Vera he'll protect her. When it's time for bed, he follows her to her room, and they spend the night together. Meanwhile, William reflects on the night his prisoner died, accused of watching men inappropriately in a public bathroom. Even in his imagination, William can't see himself, letting the man live. Hearing a noise, William goes out and sees Edward running downstairs. He fetches Philip, and the two chase after him, leaving Vera alone. In her solitude, Vera remembers being in the hospital after nearly drowning while trying to save Cyril. Hugo visited her, cold and detached, firing her because there was no longer a child to watch. He left her some money and refused to see her again. Philip and William return, having failed to find Edward, but Philip discovers his gun lying on his bed. Another figurine is gone. Vera recalls the next death is a red herring and suspects Edward is still alive, since the party was his idea. William wonders if they're already dead and in hell, admitting he killed his prisoner. Philip calms him. William goes looking for Edward and suddenly sees a huge bear. It's the bear rug falling on him, killing him like the zoo bear in the poem. Only 2 figurines remain. Philip and Vera head to the cliff to light a signal fire, but notice something on the rocks now that the tide is low: Edward's body. Vera asks Philip to move it, but as soon as he turns, she steals his gun, believing him to be the killer. In the struggle, his shoulder is shot. Vera empties the gun into him, killing him. Breaking down, Vera remembers testifying in court that Cyril's death was an accident. She insisted she'd run as fast as she could, but hadn't made it in time. Everyone believed her except Hugo, who pointed out she could run very fast when playing games, implying she slowed down on purpose so Cyril would die and Hugo could inherit the money. In truth, Cyril hadn't snuck off. Vera had told him to swim and deliberately slowed her rescue. Vera then sees Cyril again, who leads her back to the house. The hook in her bedroom now has a rope. She sits in the chair, preparing to end things as in the poem, but changes her mind when Lawrence enters. Shocked, she accidentally kicks the chair, struggling to stay alive while hearing Lawrence's explanation. The Owens never existed. The entire plan was Lawrence's, seeking justice for all the murders the guests had committed. He faked his death using the missing liver and kidneys, and Edward lied to protect their alliance. Seaton's diaries were too disturbing to release, but they awakened something in Lawrence. When Seaton looked him in the eye before dying, Lawrence realized they were alike. His tumor never improved, and he planned to die according to the poem so police would find 10 bodies but no killer. Vera tells him there are no bullets left, suggesting they pretend Philip killed them all. But Lawrence moves the chair, killing Vera, revealing he still had a bullet he'd kept when faking his death. Afterward, Lawrence arranges all 10 figurines together in the dining room, sets the chairs and drinks as if for company, then uses the gun to complete his plan, exactly as the poem dictates. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.